All right, we are live for the morning edition of the Morning Check-In. And as always, looking forward to connecting, finding out what's on your radar, and sharing with you, I guess, some somewhat concerning uh, narratives in reference to these rate cut and how large, how small, what's too big, what's too small, what sends a wrong signal or not to the markets. We know a cut is coming, but the question is what type? And then what follows after that. That's what we're going to talk about this morning. So hope everyone's doing well. Let me know if I'm streaming, if I'm actually live right now. I want to make sure everything is flowing smoothly before I begin my little discussion. So let me know what we're looking like in the chat. Let me make sure I'm live so that we can make this time worth it. So give me a second. Let me make sure everything is flowing, and then we should be good to go. Let me check and let me know. Let me know in the chat if you guys actually see me or not, so that we can make this time of value. And also, let me know what you guys are keeping your eyes on. I'm sure there's lots of things out there worth touching on. So I want to make sure I cover as much as I can within this time that we have together. So let me see here if I'm streaming or not. Yeah, so it looks like I'm streaming over on Rumble. Shout out to my people on Rumble. Let me know your thoughts and ideas over there. That'll be a good way of connecting. And let me make sure I'm streaming over here on YouTube. And if I am, good. If I'm not, that's a problem. Can't move forward until I make sure everything is covered. So let me check in real quick. Okay, so I am streaming. All right, so I'm flowing on all cylinders here. Appreciate you guys for blessing me with your presence. We got Muhammad checking in. Appreciate you guys. All right, looks like I am good to go. Okay, so let's jump right in, man. So I want to always make sure I keep you guys up to date and informed what's going on. So before we dive any further, I'll make sure I give just some resources. I'm really focusing more on the actionable steps for people who might be new. And so if you've been along on this rethinking the dollar journey with me for some time now, then you are part of the 99% of people who, or part of the 0.1% rather, of people who know what's going on. And so you have some type of cushion, but the average person doesn't. So that's why I'm going to continue to do what I do. And that's why, I'm more excited than ever just to try to put together ideas and strategies for people to utilize in reference to wealth preservation. That's it. So between the silver team, I'm also working on, the gold backs. I'm trying to get working with them to have a chance to put affordable gold into people's hands. So be on the lookout for that. And then, of course, from the speculation side of things, I've been dipping and dabbling in a variety of things for quite some time now as a part of my journey. And so I'm going to share more of that as well. So I'm doing more short form content where I can just get thoughts out, get it into your hands, let you do what you got to do with it and move forward. So that's what excites me now as I try to really, crank up things on my end to deliver more value to the masses. So it's going to be fun. Okay, so let's jump right in, man. Lee, how you doing over on Rumble? Appreciate you. Okay, so before I dive further, man, there's a big dilemma. How much of a cut should they make? And at this current moment, it doesn't really matter. It's what comes after the cut and why. And the question should be, why are they really cutting? Outside of the fact we know the goal is to stranglehold inflation. But then again, they still haven't tamed the beast, or have they? So interesting figures coming out from Trueflation that's showing very concerning data as to the need for a much bigger cut. And then eventually, once things fall out of control, it's going to go even lower. They're going to have to cut. It's some type of emergency release, some type of emergency, cut as they lose control of this narrative. So it's going to be interesting. But I think it's just an interesting topic to touch on this morning. So, and also feel free to throw out all types of other stuff. Muhammad says, let me look at 75 or 100 will make my day. And so when it comes to at this current moment, the potential fallout that will that will occur after these cuts began. All we're talking about here is just the price of currency, the price of money, the price of borrowing. That's what we're talking about here. And so the sheer nature of a cut signals that more liquidity is needed. For what? To keep this debt Ponzi scheme of a system operational. And so for the people who have a specialized strategic, methodology to their madness in reference to using these interest rates, it's going to benefit them well, because when QE starts, the spigot cut back on, those who are positioned closer to the spigot benefit the most. Those that are on the back end i.e. the recipients of the currency after they have spent their time, energy, and effort in the workforce, they're on the back end of that. They're on the short stay. They're getting the short end of that because that's where the diminishment of purchasing power, the cotillion effect, as it's referred to as. So, LBP, how you doing, man? Okay, so a fair amount of people here. I don't want to keep you guys long. Just want to dive right in and share some things because I got to do some editing. I got to get back to some stuff. So, okay, so as always, let me just close some windows out here, make sure everything is good here because we're talking about whether it's going to be a quarter or 50 or more. More than likely, it's going to be a quarter because they can't jump the gun too soon because a 50 point cut would signal trouble. It signals that they're trying to, prevent something or hold off on something. And so that's what my little thesis will be. But okay, so let's jump right into it, man. As always, for those who are plugged in, if you haven't hit the thumbs up button, make sure you hit the checker mark on Rumble, subscribe, follow, just so you can stay plugged in. I'm going to just share my 2 cents on things. And I got a lot of Trump stuff as well. It's just anyway, man. Okay. I'm just too excited. Okay, so before I dive forward, as you guys see above my head here, colonialsmetalsgroup.com/RTD. That's my partners that actually allow people to take physical possession of their retirement in the form of a self-directed IRA. If you're interested, fill out this form behind me. You'll be contacted by the experts. Ask them questions on how to navigate these turbulent waters because and I'm assuming for those who are aware and awake, we're in the midst of a monetary reset. And I think the price of gold right now at all-time highs, relative speaking, in reference to the previous 10, 20 years, signals that things have already shifted. And the problem is now people who will be caught in the whims of, actual policy that will determine whether the bond market or the stock market continues to trend in a way that's favorable for the average person. Why risk? Why gamble? Because you can't insure those things. But then again, with your self-directed IRA, you got a little coverage there. So if you're interested, feel free to fill out this form or call the number listed beneath this as well. And you can speak to the experts, get your questions answered, and find out if this method is something for you because the clock is ticking, people. Okay, that's out of the way. As always, man, I'm real appreciative of what they do for the community. And so real quick, just looking at the price action. And before I clicked go live, I was looking at silver and it was $30.92. So clearly that 12 cents make a world of difference when the margin of error in the manipulative practices of the bullion banks is so fine now that it's becoming noticeable when you get a 0.02% move in the price. But $30 to me says a lot, and it's nowhere near where it's going to go. And that's why I will continue to remind people, you can never have enough cushion or, i.e., savings in sound money. And so whatever you got to do what you got to do to make sure that you are hedging against the debasement of our currency, you'll be wise to do such, in my humble opinion. And so gold, 2571, relative all-time high. That means that it takes 2,571 of these things here to get one of those things. And then you got platinum, palladium, and then, of course, oil. A lot of people talking about energy and saying that it's going to go a lot lower when we hit that shock to the system, which it definitely could. Copper's telling an interesting story. Nickel, aluminum, zinc, lead. Yeah, these are the things that the world rely upon to operate. And so it's unfortunate that the financial system steers us towards products and services provided by the banks themselves. And that's what we consider our wealth. Okay, not doing resets. Keeping it moving. All right, let's jump right into it. So the primary story is how much. And so I came across an interesting thread here. And so this is from 𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗟𝗢𝗪, if I'm saying that correctly. Let me get this all in here. Okay, 𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗟𝗢𝗪. So the reason I pointed this out because he's entertaining a very interesting thought, which is what I'm presenting to you guys today. 25 or 50. I have my viewpoint on it, but I'm curious to hear yours. So feel free to throw it out in the chat as to what we should expect. Because everybody's basically, cut is for certain. They've been talking about a cut for last year, and it's here now. But then again, it's here because it was foretold that it would come. And then you just look at all the other central banks around us that has already made cuts, lets us know that we'll be the last one that matters. And then what? Because once you cut once, you just don't stop there. It's a vicious cycle of cuts. And those cuts are designed to prop things up. But then again, we're in a much different environment than previous years. So anyway, so this Nick guy, he's chief economist, correspondent at Wall Street Journal, and this is reference to an article. It says the Fed faces a finely balanced set of considerations over whether to cut 25 or 50 basis points at its meeting that begins today. It says the case for a 50 comes down to what the Fed officials call risk management. So if they go too hard, too fast, that signals something. But what might be thought of as a regret minimization. Says per former Dallas Federal Reserve Rob Kaplan, if you cut 50 here and you think the Fed will need to cut again after that, you are unlikely to regret such a cut, even if the economy chugs along between now and your next meeting. But if you cut 25 points and things worsen a lot in the coming weeks, you'll feel bigger regret that you didn't cut enough. So it's that this is a former Fed president, Robert Kaplan, giving his narrative as to that 50 or that 25. 50 signals that you're trying to stay ahead of whatever is unfolding. 20 is like it's precautionary measures because it's expected of us and it doesn't signal that there's anything wrong. So in between here lies the next couple of weeks between that next meeting. What are they trying to protect themselves from? Because we all know where things are. We know all the indicators. Everybody named Mama on alternative media has talked about the indicators. They've all flashed red for quite some time. Uninverted yield curve, the SAM rule with the unemployment shooting up. What else we got off the top of my head? What else we got? We got the ISM manufacturing, around that 50 or dropping below 50, but then it came up or whatever. The job numbers correction. I mean, so we got enough stuff. We got enough evidence to realize that, they have to keep that in consideration. But their focus is in inflation and unemployment. And so here we got. And then here it says the case for 25 boils down to some combination of one, process issues. 50 will signal something more urgent. There's an election soon. Communications were not explicit enough about a 50 basis point cut in the coming meetings. So that's like something that's not really out there. But then again, people are considering it. It says, 2, a view that the economy is doing just fine and will continue to do so with more gradual reductions. And 3, that because financial conditions are easy, in part because markets expected the Fed to deliver a string of cuts, igniting risk assets could make it harder to finish the inflation fight. So by igniting risk assets could mean some type of correction in the equities market. So as of right now, I saw the Dow and S&P are at all-time highs as well. So you got gold at an all-time high, stock markets at all-time high, relative speaking, in relation to the entire macro picture. That is completely abnormal. You never have gold at an all-time high and the stock market at the all-time high. So that to me, that signals something systemic in nature is also unfolding. And so it's always usually one or the other. But when you got both at all-time highs, so here's a question. Here's a question worth considering. If you know this is all being held together by literally Fed speak in a sense, when the house of cards come crashing down, which they will at some point, which is such a simple, normal boom and bust cycle, but because of the extension of the boom, the bust is going to be catastrophic. Where would you rather be at? And that's the question that everybody who is tuned in, I know that I know what you know, but the average Joe don't know that. And so this is all about staying faced with the public, keeping confidence so people don't panic ahead of time and do something that would not be helpful for their narrative of trying to control this soft landing. Okay. So in reference to this particular comment here, this is all stemming from this article right here. And it's a very detailed article, so I'm not going to bore you with it. But if you thumb through it, you get some insight. That's all. And because it's a mainstream outlet, it's designed to keep confidence in the markets and confidence in the controllers that be. But we all know the fact that we're here at this point, that something is a little bit problematic for them. But it says, Fed prepares to lower rates with the size of the first cut in doubt. And it goes on talking about all the whatever. But the interesting part here is these graphs. Let me share these with you real quick. So based upon previous, from the first cut onward, the gap in time and the size of these cuts have changed significantly because they varied. So here you got in 1998, from the very first cut, which is this dark blue line, you got the first cut, and then it took less than 12 months for them to achieve their goals of getting to where they wanted to get the Fed funds rate down to. And then you have this far green line behind my head here. This is 2015. This was the most unnatural experimentation we could have ever imagined, because this hike here was during the quantitative easing phase. And you see they utilized, from the time they made their first cut all the way to, or first hike rather, I'm sorry. First hike. All the way until it took over 36 months for them to accomplish their goals, because that's what's during the QE phase. And then this black line is the most egregious hiking that they've ever done because of the health situation, which resulted in about $6 trillion or so being brought into existence. And then globally speaking, I think it was closer to 30 trillion total from all the different currencies. And so you see the rate at which they did that. Now we're caught in between this green and this black as to what they would do now moving forward. And this is where things gets a little bit uncertain, because we've never been in this type of environment before. Then you scroll down here. It says months between the last Fed rate increase and first cut. And so here you are here. A seesaw of activity from 89, 95, 2000, 2006, 18, 19, to present date. And so months wise, we've been at an extremely high for well over 2 years now. So they're now trying to dial this back. The elasticity of currency. This is what the Federal Reserve, this is what one of their mandates was as when they were created, to control the elasticity of currency. Cut rates, monetary base expands rapidly. Raise rates, monetary base contracts. So they've done the contraction, supposedly. Now they're ready to expand the monetary base again. And they haven't really controlled much of anything. Okay. So I'll mention all that because here on this next one here, I have what the true fight is against with this cut. This is what I believe the size of the cut and the speed at the cuts, the way they will come, is because of deflation, i.e. their concerns of a stagflationary environment where assets come coming down at the same time consumer prices goes back up. And so here is a very interesting chart that you won't see anywhere apart from trueflation.com. And so trueflation.com does a good job of grabbing the data and giving it to us straight in similar fashion to what John Williams at Shadow Stats does. And so as you can see here, decentralized infrastructure indexes and inflation, 18 plus million data points, 60 plus providers, censorship resistant, transparent, backed by the chain link Coinbase. So this is how they use a blockchain for good to give people real data. And their data, to me, is more trustworthy than what we get from the powers that be. But here is the current figures of the CPI. So the Federal Reserve came out, or they said it was 2.5. So that's why everything is condition-wise. We're getting closer to their mandated target of 2%. And so that gives them enough confidence and cushion to want to start cutting. So that set the narrative. But according to Trueflation, it's actually 1.11%. And that is well below what the CPI figures was back when Jerome Powell in 2000, 2001 was saying that we just don't have enough. We don't have enough inflation in the economy. We need more. We need more. We got it plus some. And now they run the risk of a deflationary collapse if they don't cut and start providing liquidity to the markets. So they're caught in a rock between a hard place, because this figure here tells me that they're fighting deflation 100%. And so this right here would be a reason for them to cut 50 points, because this is an emergency, because deflation for a debt-based economy is disastrous. And so whether it be a quarter tomorrow, It will be the next one will be another quarter, and a quarter is going to be consecutive quarters. Now the timing we'll see because of the presidential election in the remainder of this year, but they're going to have to cut this thing a lot lower to maintain face that they can still land the plane. But again, for those who are paying attention, I've already mentioned that because this is a global event, every governor in the central bank, every prime minister, president, they're all saying the same thing. The economy can be brought down smoothly with minimum damage as far as job losses, as well as being able to tame inflation. That's what they're telling us. That's the big selling package. Hogwash. The debt is too massive to allow both of those to happen. So both will give, in my opinion. Okay. So with that out of the way, 25.50 don't matter. It's coming. Spigot's cutting back on. And now it's going to be a matter of how do we, as participants in this experiment, better protect ourselves. And that's why I believe we're going to see a slight correction at some point when something gives. But as a result of that, when they cut even more, i.e. some type of emergency cut, we're going to have gradual cuts until there's an emergency cut, probably due to the banking sector or war or whatever. And then there's going to be a race like never before in risk assets, safety assets, crypto's going right. I mean, it's going to be a race of like something we've never witnessed. While all along, the purchasing power for those who are focused on just accumulating more of these will be the ones on the short end of the stick. Because the final event from what comes with all these emergency cuts that will take place will be the final unwinding of our currency. The Federal Reserve note system will then need to officially be rebooted. And then that's when you get into the fact that, real quick here, let me just share something with you. Because I was about to do a video on it, but the Bank of International Settlements has ramped up their CBDC, Project Agora. Give me a second here. I forgot to mention this, but okay. So I'll just throw this in here. Just a little icing on the cake. Because this is some fresh news that you won't see on Fox, because Fox is right now bombarded with, Trump. And of course, Trump last night still had his, his reveal of world financial liberty. Okay. But this is what is being worked on. So this is as of the 16th of yesterday. And I'm sure if you didn't see this or hear about this already, because I haven't saw this yet, then you didn't know about this. But this is what they're in a race to prepare for, because they got to have this stuff ready when stuff come crashing down. So they're going to do whatever they can to buy some time. This is all about buying time, because the reset is now. We're in the reset. The reboot comes when they bring the solution to you. So private sector partners join Project Agora. Real quick, more than 40 private sector financial firms convened by the Institution of International Finance will join the Bank of International Settlement and a group of leading central bank in Project Agora to explore how tokenization can enhance wholesale cross-border payments. So I'll sum this up because I read through it. How tokenization of depositors' funds can be interconnected and utilized when it comes to wholesale CBDCs. So that's what they're working on. So they're partnering right now. They're trying to iron out the kinks. The software, the code has already been written. Now they're trying to make sure it's compatible amongst the commercial banks, the payment services, and everything in between. So they're connecting their dots, crossing their I's and stuff like that. And so this is what's happening right now behind the scenes. You got 40 private sector. This is a global coordinated event amongst all central banks and a lot of the big players. Project Agora is structured as a public-private collaboration. It brings together 7 central banks: Bank of France, Japan, Korea, Mexico, Swiss National Bank, Bank of England, and Federal Reserve Bank of New York. They will work in partnership with the selected financial firms, and the IIF will act as a private sector convener. So this is what is being worked on right now. They know the clock is ticking. They got to make sure they're ready. Everything has to be plugged in, all APIs connected on the back end, so that when you log in your phone, You give them your digital ID, you can get your currency in CBD form. Then comes UBI. So that's just a little side note for those who care. Okay, more stuff here to bring to your attention real quick here. Things that really should concern us slightly. So this is what happens after that first rate cut, the market response. It's all about how does markets respond. Here we have, how do sectors perform after the first interest rate cut? And of course, go throughout history, you can compile enough data to see how things tend to unfold. And so this is from Visual Capitalist. And it says here, how do sectors perform first rate cut? It says the average performance let me see, I can't read that. The first average after 12 months after the first rate cut. So 12-month time span, this is what happens. Consumer cycles, consumer cycles, technology, healthcare, all go upward. Business services come down, industrials come down, telecommunications come down, non-energy materials come down, consumer services come down, energy comes down, utilities come down, and finance comes down. So at the very bottom, it says finance. That is the banking sector. That's the money movement, currency movement of the retail investors. And so 12 months after the fact, there's always some correction of some kind when rates are cut, because it's a shift of, now you have this liquidity coming in. Now you got people who are closer to the spigot. They steer the markets in the direction they want to, and they go for the greatest gains with this new currency that they're now borrowing at a cheaper rate. So they get richer. The average person at the bottom gets poorer. The people who don't know how to take advantage of what the people who run the system actually are doing. And so here's just more figures here, but thought I would just bring this to you because there will be a decoupling of the system. And on top of this, these metrics here, based upon previous performance, may or may not apply to the current reality we're in now, because this is an unknown territory we're all experiencing right now, based upon the fact that every country is all on the same trajectory towards trying to, basically keep the population dumbed down so that they don't realize that they are the ones that's strategically rebooting the system and controlling all this so that they can then come out with their solution, which I just talked about a minute ago. So just a little something on the side there for those who care. Okay. And on to more subjects here. As always, I can rant forever, so throw out some thoughts in the chat here, what you guys are keeping your eyes on. Crony capitalism, more like a crony capitalism, 100%. That's what it all is. It's literally, as much as we are being drawn to believe that this presidential election matters, I don't think it matters in its totality, because what we're witnessing now is a global event. But then again, our minds and the way the narratives around us are formed, they force us to keep our eyes and ears on what impacts us or me today. Democrat, Republican, Kamala, we know what we get. That's why she can be so upfront and honest and lie, because the media won't fact check her like that. The average Joe, they have already been politically brainwashed into thinking that, Trump is all this bad stuff and more. And so it's going to be this greater divide coming. So there will be no happy winner at the end of all this, which will lead to more government intervention when they roll out a surveillance mechanism because of acts of terrorism that will take place as a result of the election on either winner. But at the end of the day, it's just a one-dimensional viewpoint that we all tend to have because we are American citizens or whatever. But Europe, Canada, Mexico, every country's having their own issues right now, and it's all the same because of central banking, because of the Federal Reserve and the Bank of International Settlements, the World Bank, all these entities that are the ones still steering the ship. And the fact, and this should be more of a sign to me, that the powers that be are still in control, because the same people who fund wars, they fund both sides, right? The same people who funds the presidencies, they fund both sides, right? So how can we expect a different outcome when the people at the top will win either way? Just something worth thinking about. Okay, so next article here, real quick here. I got a couple more if I got time to get them in. And I'll just thumb through them real quick. This is interesting. Just more things to fuel people's flames. Florida Governor DeSantis to sign executive order for Trump assassination attempt investigation. As I mentioned in Telegram, 2 times could be luck, 3 times usually a charm. You know what I'm saying? If it is what it is on the surface. Because once again, when everything has been steered in a certain direction, deception is key. Okay, that's one there. What else we got here? Let me give you guys some more real quick. Just, keeping you in tune with a variety of subjects. And this is something I'm going to keep an eye on. President Bukele says El Salvador no longer dependent on debt. So they made an announcement. He made an announcement that because of their financial situation is a little bit more stable because of the proceeds they've been able to accumulate as a result of mining Bitcoin, they are no longer in a position where they need to borrow from the IMF and the World Banks and all those entities that the establishment set up to enslave nations. So from this, it looks as if they're trying to break free of their slave masters, monetary slave masters. If this is real, this is a great step. If this is staged or if this is not what it seemed, then once again, the U.S. will step in. Because mind you, all of Central America's and beyond, their worst of society, a good portion of it, has already come to the U.S. So technically speaking, it definitely is, safer in El Salvador. I went there, went to Bitcoin Beach, had a great experience there. And it's not what is being sold here in America. It's nowhere near as developed as they would like for it to appear. And they still use the dollar. So as long as the dollar remains in circulation there, where El Salvadorians work, live, breathe, and save in dollars, Bukele can continue with this narrative that they're disrupting the bank, whatever, because they still use the dollar. Now, the real test will be if, while he's not taking debt, supposedly from the financiers of the world, he then announced that we're going to adjust our legal tender laws. We're going to bring back the El Salvadorian currency to compete with the dollar, and we're going to back our currency with a certain amount of reserves. And he gonna of course say Bitcoin, but once again, he throws some gold in there. So he put gold and a Bitcoin reserve to back the El Salvadorian currency. Now we got a problem, Houston. You better believe the powers that be are going to go see Mr. Bukele. So unless he does that, everything he's saying right now could be just hype, because Bitcoin is a government entity established protocol for this time and purpose and space to distract the masses. And it's done a good job of distracting the masses because decentralized finance is what Donald Trump now is excited about. You got to love it, people. What else we got here? Let me see. That's about it. That's about it. I don't want to bore you guys anymore. But this is what is in the news, man. To cut, and how far to cut is the question. We're going to find out. But then what comes after the cut? It's going to be a day of it's going to be an awakening period for humanity as we go through this reset. We're in the first inning of the reset. And I can say that with pure confidence because precious metals tells us that things are starting to appear in a fashion that I would imagine the banks are definitely trying to keep the lid on. Let me find my chart here. Yeah. So, and then also what I'm really focusing on. So this is just a little price action. Pay attention more so to possession rather than price. Eastern nations are concerned with quantity. They want tonnage. We over here, we focus on digits on screens. Oh, my count is up today. I'm richer. And if it's on a screen, more than likely it's not backed by anything tangible. So it's subject to the markets. So it can be up one day, down the next. So we need to take the mindset of possession. Most of us here can't acquire tonnage, but you can acquire some form of weight. And so that's what I'm trying to focus on. So as I mentioned, for those who came in late, just working on my end to try to put solutions in hand. So I'm going to continue to talk about the silver team because I enjoy it, and it covers a lot of different things. You got automated allocation of weight. You have your own potential bullion store that you can share with other people, and then you also have a business plan within a network that allows you to actually become your own precious metals dealer. I would rather be a creator rather than just a consumer all the time. So that's just how my mindset works. But anyway, but also with the gold backs, trying to get physical gold into people's hands and working on that as well. So people who have options, and that's what I'm gonna focus on. So I'm creating content around those options moving forward. And so hopefully you guys, take advantage of it or share this information so others can learn, listen, and be able to protect and preserve themselves. MAC1114 on Rumble says, Mike, thanks for sounding the alarm. God bless. Peace. Appreciate you, man. Thanks for the love. Okay, so that being the case, that's all she wrote. Sweet and simple, just giving you some ideas, thoughts, suggestions out here. We know it's all a facade. They're trying to control the narrative. So if you know better, hopefully you do better. So learn, live, laugh, love, and live, man. Let's live life, enjoy. Thank God for his blessings to be able to, breathe air, man, because a lot of people didn't get that chance this morning, unfortunately. So the kingdom of God is here, people. It's inside of us through the Holy Spirit. Allow the Spirit to work, man. Let's work.